So we are now recording, and if you're welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like. But who can tell me what flower is this? Anybody know what flower this is?
What?
It is the tulip. I took this picture in the Netherlands at a very beautiful garden. And the tulip is actually my absolute favorite flower. And so we're going to talk about let's get growing. So whether or not we're going to be growing flowers or vegetables or fruits. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll talk about plants. And hold on, slideshow. So plants, and let's get growing. All right. So if anybody has any comments, my comment section went away, so I don't know if, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can get it to come back. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now I can see comments. Okay, so we're going to talk about plants, and with that, so how can you tell if something is alive or not alive? So if you can tell, how can you tell if something is alive? And anybody can unmute themselves or write in the chat, but how can you tell something is alive?
By it growing or it moving around or
growing, moving around,
seeing certain things that indicate that it's growing.
Yeah. So what could some of those things? You said moving around. You said it. What else does something have to do? If leaves are green, okay, that may be for plants. There are some specific questions. So like the first one is, does it eat food? Okay, so if something is alive, it has to be able to eat. Something it has to be able to eat and stay alive. And does it grow? Okay, so if something is alive, it has to eat and it has to grow. Does it drink water? Does it breathe air? Does it have babies? And does it move? So these are some of the basic questions that you ask of when something is alive or not alive. Can a rock eat food? Can a rock grow? Nope. Can a rock breathe air? Does a rock drink water? Nope. Does a rock move? It could move if somebody picks it up and moves it. Does a rock have babies? No. So, but you know, everything that is alive does these things. And you say, well, how does a plant move? It does. If you think about a plant, and I'm going to give you an example of how a plant might move. Has anybody ever seen a sunflower? A sunflower, when it grows, it moves with the sun. And if you have a plant that you have near a window, sometimes the plant will actually move itself and grow towards the light. And it'll move towards the shade if it likes shade, or if it moves towards the light if it likes light. So plants do move. The sunflower itself actually moves itself along with the sun. So the entire plant, the head of the sunflower moves, and that's how it got its name, was the sunflower. So we're going to do this example of Annotate. So these are pictures to show you where to find Annotate on your computer. So if you see up in the upper part of your table, it could be down at the bottom, you should see something that looks like this. It says View Options, okay? So from View Options, you're going to click on that View Options, okay? And you should see the word Annotate. So you're going to scroll down to Annotate. I'm going step by step. Then from Annotate, when you click on that, a bar like this will show up. And what we're going to use is we're going to be using the draw. So you click on the draw, and you can change your color to whatever you like by picking out the format, and you can choose a color that you like. Okay, so let me go back. You're going to go to the View Options on your screen, You're going to click on View Options. You're going to scroll down to Annotate. And then from Annotate, you'll see this come up. And then you're going to click on Draw, and you can change your colors to under Format. Okay, so from this, what I'd like you all to do is I want you to circle all of the living things. So remember those questions. Those, does it breathe? Does it have babies? Does it move? So circle all the living things. All right. You think you've got everything? Oh, I'm so glad. Finally, somebody circled the plants that are underwater, like the coral. Okay, so everybody got that right. We've got the girl, we've got the plant, we have insects, we have coral, we have our tree, we have our rabbit, the grasshopper, and the mushroom, which is a fungi, it's a fungus, and we have our snake. Now, is the seashell, the turtle shell, is that living or non-living? Is this turtle shell living or non-living?
Non-living.
It's non-living, that's correct. The turtle shell is non-living. It used to be a turtle living inside it, but at this point it's non-living. And so all of those, now I want you to circle something that is not living, but came from something that was living. So it's not living now, but it came from something that was once living. Okay. There's one other thing. Okay. So yes, these were things, so books come from what that was once living?
Paper comes from trees.
That's right, trees, and our table is trees. Rubber on the car comes from a rubber tree plant. Okay, same thing with our tennis shoes. And how about our ball? Our volleyball is typically made out of leather. And so that came from a cow. So it was once living, and same thing with the turtle. I don't know of anything that was once living on the computer. So I don't know anything about that. And same thing with the metal in the car, except for the rubber. Okay, so we have another person who just joined us. So I'm going to clear all of our drawings. And so we are going to go on to our next slide. Oops, it's not advancing for me. Hold on. There we go. So we're going to talk about the parts of the plant. So when we have something that's growing, we have different parts of our plant. So the most important, there's a lot of important things for our plant, but the first thing is our roots. And our roots are what actually holds the plant in place. It holds it in the ground. The roots are very important. They have to have a good root system to be able to absorb the water and the nutrients. So that's like its fertilizer and all of its food that it needs. And it stores the sugar and starches that the plant has to have to be able to grow. And then we have our stem, and that's what supports the leaves and the flowers, anything that starts to grow above the ground. So typically we don't see the roots of the plants, but the stem is like a big straw where it transports water and nutrients from the roots to the rest of its plant. So all the leaves and all the other plant parts. And it's what
Hi, I had some difficulties getting inside.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks. I'm glad you were able to join us now. So then we had our stem, so it also transports the sugars that are made in the leaves and things like the nutrients that it gets from the ground with the roots. And then we have the leaves. And think about the leaves as being like big umbrellas where they absorb the light. Um, and they get the light energy from the sun and they combine water and carbon dioxide and it starts to make sugar. Does anyone know the name of the process that plants go through to be able to make its own sugar? Does anybody know what that's called? We're going to go over that in a second. Anybody know what was that?
Photosynthesis.
That's right, photosynthesis. So, and the leaves, they also provide air. So plants have to be able to breathe. And they have these little tiny holes on the bottom of the leaves that are called stomata. And the stomata is how the leaves actually breathe. And if you have a house plant inside your house and your house has some dust on it, it's always a good idea to dust off your plants, to wipe your plant leaves, because that'll, keep your plant healthy, because then it makes it so that the leaves can actually breathe better. And the leaves help regulate any moisture in the plant. And then we have our flower. And the flower is the part that actually produces the fruit, and it also produces the seeds, the babies. So remember when we talked about what a plant has to, what something has to have to live, it needs food, it needs air, it needs to be able to make babies, to be able to reproduce. And then the fruit is what actually comes from the flower, and that is what contains the seed. And then we have the seeds, which are the new baby plants, so that the plant can reproduce itself. So when we think about our vegetables and our fruits, we eat all of these parts. So I'm going to talk about vegetables. Does anybody know a vegetable that is a root that we eat? A root vegetable. Y'all can unmute yourself or you can type it in the chat. Benjamin, yes.
Carrots.
Carrots are, that's right, carrots and potatoes and turnips and radishes and anything that we eat that grows below the ground are root vegetables. Okay, how about a stem vegetable? A vegetable that we eat that is a stem. Any stem vegetables? All right, how about celery, asparagus? Those are all stem vegetables. How about leaf vegetables? Vegetables that are well, yeah, cabbages, yes, cabbages.
How about lettuce? Oh no, lettuce is a plant, is a flower.
Lettuce, yep, lettuce is good as a leaf. It's a leaf vegetable. We have lots of lettuce.
And another stem vegetable is rhubarb.
Rhubarb, that's another, yes, that is correct. Kale, collard greens, any of your greens and such are all leaf vegetables. How about a flower vegetable? I have one in mind that actually has the word flower in it. The flower vegetable, anybody eat cauliflower?
Most types of fruits.
Cauliflower is a flower vegetable that we eat. Also broccoli, that's another flower that we eat. We have lots of fruit vegetables that we eat that are the fruit of the vegetable. What was that?
Chocolate, because in order to make chocolate, it comes from a type of bean, which then grows on a tree as the fruit.
Well, yeah, that is true, but yes, I guess you are right. Yep. Okay, so that is a bean that we eat, but that would actually be a seed. That would be a seed because it's a bean. But how about a fruit vegetable? So think about fruit vegetables. Vegetables that are fruit of a vegetable plant are things that have seeds inside them.
Apples.
No, that's a fruit. That's a fruit of a fruit tree. So think about a vegetable that has seeds in them. Anybody eat cucumbers? How about some other vegetables that are fruit vegetables? They're vegetables that have seeds inside them.
Tomato.
Tomato, that is correct. Anybody eat pumpkin? Zucchini or squash? Peppers, bell peppers. Anybody eat, let's see, bell peppers, eggplant? No? So all of these are different fruit vegetables. They're vegetables that are the fruit of a vegetable plant. Okay, so cucumbers. And then the last one is seeds. And so there's some vegetables that we eat that are seeds. Anybody know of a seed vegetable that we eat? One you eat like this.
Beans. Any type of bean.
Beans, okay.
Any type of bean.
Uh-huh. How about something you have, it comes long like this and you go like this.
Corn.
Corn, that is a seed vegetable. How about peas? Anybody eat peas? Green beans, the bean itself is the fruit, but the seeds inside the beans are the seeds, okay? So, but we have peas and corn and beans. Those are all parts of the plant that are the seeds of the vegetable plant. And with our fruits and vegetables, oftentimes we need pollinators. Some plants can pollinate themselves, others need assistance. So it could be like butterflies or bees, or it could be animals. Some animals help pollinate, birds help pollinate. And so they are the ones that transfer pollen from one plant to another to be able to help the plant be able to produce a fruit. So the flower to be able to produce a fruit. Oh, somebody's got the annotate, so let me clear that away. All right, so what is the most important pollinator? Does anybody know? What do you think could be the most important? The bee. Caven, do you know what kind of bee?
Honeybee.
The honeybee, and he is correct.
So I watched a video on Kurzgesagt. It's a really good video. It's a really good website. So anyways, it said that there are foundations that hold up the human world. One of the foundations is the honeybee. Without the honeybee, like the whole entire human, it's like the center column. Without it, the whole entire human world would be destroyed. First, honeybees pollinate plants. Animals eat plants. There are animals that eat herbivores, and those are called carnivores. Carnivores eat other carnivores. So without the plants, there will be no herbivores, which means no food for the carnivores. And the carnivores were the other carnivores and the apex predators, and that means no food for us.
That is right. Exactly. You are exactly
well, everybody
right.
dies.
Yeah,
But
you are exactly
there's other
right.
pollinators.
Because the honeybee is the most important pollinator. It pollinates a lot of our fruits and vegetables. And without those fruits and vegetables, we wouldn't have food for the animals to live as well as us. And you are exactly right. Because what I wanted to show you about this honeybee is, do you see how much hair the honeybee has on its body? So not just its legs, but on its head and its abdomen and its thorax. It has hairs all over it. So when you see a very up close picture of a honeybee, you can see how much pollen is actually attached to its entire body. So when it flies from one flower to another flower, from plant to plant, it is helping to spread the pollen that it has from all of those plants that it arrives on when it's drinking its nectar and when it's collecting pollen on all of those hairs. And it's super important. And what Kevin was saying is exactly right. And so some farmers actually get this is a semi truck full of honeybee hives. And all of these hives are going on a trip to be able to go to help farmers actually pollinate their fields. So farmers will actually hire other people who are beekeepers to be able to have their beehives come to their farms and help them pollinate so that they have a very productive year. So this is an apple orchard, and you can see the beehives that have been moved into the apple orchard to help pollinate all of these apple trees so that the trees have the highest amount of success of being able to produce of high crops, high amount of apples in its crops. So we're going to talk about how do plants get the sugar to be able to make the fruit that is so sweet. And oh, we've got Benjamin raised his hand. You have a question, Benjamin?
Aren't there other pollinators, not just bees?
That is correct. There are. The bees are the most effective pollinator, but yes, there are other pollinators like birds, some animals like lizards, bats, possums. We have the bumblebee is also pollinator. Even wasps are pollinators. They are not as effective because the wasp family, they have very smooth bodies, so they get pollen on their legs and such. The housefly is a pollinator. Butterflies are pollinators. So there are over 1,500 species of birds that help pollinate, but the bee is still the #1 most important pollinator that we have. So that's why I was saying what was the most important was the honeybee. But yes, you are correct. There are a lot of other types of both flying insects as well as animals that help pollinate. I even found out that the world's largest flower is in Africa, and even the African elephants help pollinate that giant flower because the pollen actually sticks on the bottom of their feet, and when they're walking through, it helps pollinate those flowers. I found that out when we were doing an Earth Day exercise. But thinking about what plants need and what their ingredients are to be able to make the sugar, plants have something that is in their cells called chlorophyll, and that is the green pigment. It's in their leaves and it's in their stem, and that's what helps make their own food. So we have to rely on eating other fruits and vegetables and things for our food. Plants are special where they can actually create their own through a process called photosynthesis. And that's how they make their own sugar for food. And breaking down that word photosynthesis, the word photo means light, and synthesis means to make something. So it is using light to be able to make something. So the plants are making their own sugars through photosynthesis, and they store those in their fruits and in their stems and in their roots because they want to use them for when they get, for later, when the later purposes. So if you think about this, when the recipe for a plant sugar is the chlorophyll, so that is the green leaves, what it has, and then it needs the light energy. Where do you think it gets its light energy from? What is the source of the light? The sun. So it needs the sun to give its light energy. Then it gets water. Where does the water come from?
The ground.
Or the sky. Okay, so yeah, it's groundwater, but ultimately it rains, or we artificially water it, but we water it from the top side. So we water our plants, and then it has the air around us, and that air that they need is what's called carbon dioxide. So it's the air that we breathe out is what the plant actually uses. So they take the CO2, which is carbon dioxide, which means it has 2 oxygens, and that is the air. And then it gets its nutrients from where? Where do you think the plant gets its nutrients? Where do you think the nutrients are located? They are in the
ground.
ground.
In the ground.
They are in the ground. So it gets those nutrients from the roots, and the roots absorb those nutrients. And when the plant grows, it gives off something that we use. What do we breathe in?
Oxygen, and it goes off oxygen.
Yeah.
But even though they suck in carbon dioxide, they still need it. That's why they say never sleep under a tree at night. Under its leaves, its stomata will take in the oxygen, and then you'll be only left with carbon dioxide and you'll choke and die.
Oh, never heard that before. Okay.
But they say that.
Plants give off the oxygen, and so we need our
But
plants.
they still need oxygen to survive. Everything needs oxygen to survive on Earth.
So they do need air. That's right. And then that gives us their fruits and vegetables. So that's the recipe for our plant sugars. And so it's the solar energy of the sun, and it gets the nutrients in the roots, and then the water comes in from the roots as well as on the top. And then the stomata takes in the carbon dioxide, and then it gives off oxygen, and it grows a flower, which then produces the fruit once it's pollinated. And that's where the sugar ultimately goes into the fruit. And that's why when we eat our fruits and vegetables, some of them taste sweet, some of them are not as sweet, but that is where the plant sugar is located. So we're going to watch a little video, and hopefully you can hear this. Can everybody hear that? Can everybody hear that? Yes? Not
Yes.
good? Okay, good.
Yep.
Today we are going to talk about an incredible process that uses light, carbon dioxide, and water to make something awesome that we all love, sugar. Unfortunately, we cannot do this amazing, incredible process, which is known as photosynthesis. Some types of protists can do photosynthesis, some types of bacteria can, and of course plants can. Plants will be our focus for this video clip. Animals and amoebas just sort of missed out on this ability. But we do benefit from it greatly, as this process also produces oxygen, the very gas that we need in order to breathe. So this process is important for us to understand. First, a little background. Plants and animals need sugar, specifically glucose. Plants, as well as animals, use glucose to make ATP energy in a process known as cellular respiration. ATP energy is critical for cells to be able to carry out their cellular activities. But while we have to be in search of food to get glucose, plants instead can do photosynthesis to make their own glucose. So that's kind of nice because they don't have to go anywhere to get it. Plants have adaptations to make them able to carry out photosynthesis in a variety of environments. Here is the formula for photosynthesis. On the left side of the formula, you will find the reactants. That means these are the inputs. The plant has to have these in order to do photosynthesis. On the right side of the formula, you will see the products. That means those are the items that are produced by the plant, the outputs. Now sometimes the formula is written a little differently. Technically it needs to be balanced, and sometimes light is written on top of the arrow just to show that it's in the presence of light, so it may instead look like this. The C6H12O6, that product, it's a sugar, specifically glucose. Now, photosynthesis, it's not just a formula. Have you ever tried to capture light before? It's hard. Plants have light-capturing molecules called pigments that help them do this. See, visible light, it has different wavelengths. Different wavelengths of light have different colors. If you have ever played with a prism before, you may have been able to see how light can be divided up into a rainbow of colors due to these different wavelengths. Well, one pigment that plants use for photosynthesis is called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is an expert at absorbing red and blue light, but not so much green light. Because it does not absorb very much green light, it actually reflects green light. Therefore, many plants appear green to our eyes. There are more pigments besides chlorophyll that work with different wavelengths of light, and this can explain why green is not the only color that you see in plants. Chlorophyll is a pigment found in the chloroplast of plant cells. Convenient, they sound similar. This amazing organelle is not found in animal cells. There are two major reactions that occur in the chloroplast that, together, make up photosynthesis. The light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction. The light-independent reaction, by the way, is also called the Calvin cycle, or dark reaction. So let's talk about these two reactions. The light-dependent reaction happens in thylakoids. What are thylakoids? Well, they are little compartments in the chloroplast, and they contain the pigment. They tend to be nicely stacked. As a collective stack, we call it a granum. The best way to describe a granum is that it looks like a stack of green pancakes. Very, very small green pancakes. In the light-dependent reaction, light is converted by means of a complex process that involves multiple photosystems into chemical energy. By chemical energy, I mean ATP, we've mentioned that before, that's energy, and NADPH. We'll get to that later. During the light-dependent reaction, water, which is needed for this process to work, is split. That means if you think of the chemical formula for water, it's H2O, it is split so that you get electrons, protons, and oxygen. So oxygen is also a product of this reaction. So let's take a look at our formula to see what just happened. The light and the water on the reactant side were used in the light-dependent reaction, and the oxygen that was produced was also from this light-dependent reaction. Now, what about the other items in the formula? And why would you make this ATP and NADPH? What do they do? Where are they going to come in? Well, that's the next step, the light-independent reaction. The light-independent reaction also occurs in the chloroplast, but the name is misleading. It doesn't happen in the dark. It needs items from the light-dependent reaction, so they happen at the same time. Now, while it still happens in the chloroplast, as with plants, we're not going to be getting out of the chloroplast with this part, it does not happen in the thylakoids. Instead, it happens in the stroma, and the stroma is a fluid outside of the thylakoid. In this reaction, carbon dioxide must be fixed. What do I mean by fix? Well, nothing was wrong with it. By fixed, I mean that with the additional help of a major enzyme, the inorganic carbon dioxide is changed to a more usable organic form. The ATP from the light-dependent reaction helps supply energy, and the NADPH from the light-dependent reaction supplies reducing power. By that, I mean that it helps add high-energy electrons to this process. So, in a very complex series of pathways, the fixed carbon dioxide, the ATP, and the NADPH are used to make a product that can ultimately be converted into glucose. Phew! So, let's take a look at this formula. Last time, I promise. So, we have here the circled items already that came from the light-dependent reaction. Now notice the other items, the carbon dioxide on the reactant side, and the glucose, which was on the product side, those were from the light-independent reaction. Together, the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction, which happen simultaneously, create the glucose that plants need to survive. The process of photosynthesis is necessary for plants to make sugar. Photosynthesis also supplies organisms with the oxygen they need because, remember, oxygen was a product. Also, since plants are the producers in food webs, photosynthesis is important because plants supply the energy for a lot of hungry consumers. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
Okay, so that's how the plant grows. Am I still muted? Okay, everybody can hear me still? Okay, so that's how the plant is able to make its glucose, which is its photosynthesis with the sugar. So when a plant grows, of course, we plant the seed and you have to give it
This
time.
is
Yes?
young. There's that picture you're showing is not real. It's not true. They come from one single root. All plants come from the one single root called the taproot. They
Yes,
don't
and
come from any roots. And there are monocots and dicots. In this case, this one's a monocot. Dicots only have one.
Okay.
I mean, dicots have two.
Okay, so that is correct.
Monocots
But
have one leaf.
so you have a plant, you have a seed, you plant the seed, and then the seed will start to grow roots. And you're right, the taproot is the first root, but then it spreads and has additional roots. And so those plants starts to grow. When a plant starts to grow, you have to give it time. And so you have, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to have time, and then you have to have patience. So we talked about what a plant needs to grow, which is the water and the sun, and it needs nutrients. But you can observe the plant as it grows as well. And one of the things that you can do is if you have a soda pop bottle, if you have a plastic soda bottle, you can put a bean, a green bean seed in the soda pop bottle in some dirt, but wrap the soda pop bottle in a sleeve of paper, and then you can lift the paper up and down, and as you see, you'll be able to watch the roots be able to grow. As long as you plant the seed in near the side of the soda pop bottle, you can lift the paper up and down, and you can actually watch the roots being able to grow. And then you can transplant that into your garden or into a bigger pot to be able to actually have some green beans be able to produce. So you can observe. So plants growth. Now, do you get to observe all of the growth? No, because a lot of times when you have plants that are growing in the ground, you're only seeing the part that is up above the ground. But you have to have time and patience and some observation. So we're going to use that annotate again, and I want you to circle all the things that grow from the seeds. And Kevin, I know you weren't on here when we went over how to get to the annotate. So I'm going to go back real quick and just show you. Well, I'm not going to be able to get back there. Oops, sorry. So Kevin, I'm just going to tell you, up at the top of your screen, you should see something that says more options. You're going to click on that, and then a drop box will come down, and you should see the word annotate, and you click on annotate, and there should be some options of draw. And from draw, you're going to be able to choose a color, and then you should be able to write. So, okay, so you should be able to do this. Okay, you saw I wrote hello. Oh, so okay, so I'm going to clear all my drawings. So I want you to circle all the items that came from seeds. Okay, are you all done? Yay, somebody finally got mint. Okay, so growing from seeds, we have tomatoes, pumpkins, roses, beans, oranges, strawberry, carrots, oak trees, mint. What about a bale of straw? Doesn't straw come from a seed? Straw does come from a seed. That's hay. Okay, so hay comes from a seed. All right, now, so we're going to clear these. Now I want you to circle things that maybe once came from a seed that is now a product that we have manipulated to be able to make? So something that we, okay, a bale of straw, okay, wooden table, cotton balls comes from the cotton, pencils came from trees, shoes, the rubber on the shoes come from a rubber tree, and paperback books came from trees. Depends on what kind of spoons. Most spoons, I would say no. And so I think you guys got those. Hot chocolate, yes, because remember, they come from the cocoa bean. So yeah, all right. And
Pencils
also
come
trees
from-
too, because it
Wait,
comes from,
lunch boxes are metal.
I didn't say lunch boxes.
Yeah,
didn't
lunch
say
boxes are made of metal. They're nothing. Shoes are
Yeah.
not made of metal. Are made of things that aren't. Wait, shoes are made of leather, but leather
Leather-
comes from cowhide.
Yeah, but that doesn't come from a seed, but the rubber comes from a rubber, the rubber on the bottom of the shoes could be from.
Yeah, that comes from trees though.
Yep.
Rubber
Rubber
trees. It's
tree.
fine.
That's right. Okay. So let's go to the next. Let me clear the drawings. All right. Oh, yellow. Okay, so this, you're going to solve this puzzle. And Grace, this one I did borrow from what we did on Saturday, so you might already know the answers to these. So we're going to solve this puzzle by breaking them down. And so the first one is, and these are all different plants, I'm very, very blank because I found a pot of blank at the end of the rainbow. So if you take those two blanks and put them together, you get a special word. So what do you find at the end of rainbow? A pot of what?
Gold.
Gold. And another word, I'm very, very blank. What could you be? What do you say at Christmas time? Oh, Mary. So if you put them together, what do you get? You get the word, oh, come on, marigold. Okay, not spelled exactly the same. All right, so next one is, both of you should listen. I want the blank of you to be quiet when I put my finger to my blank. So when I say both, how many is that? Both is how many?
2.
2. And I want to, when you put your fingers to your what? Another word for mouth, I see mouth. Lips. Okay, so when you get it together, what do you get? Oh, it won't let me do that.
Tulip.
That's right. Tulips. Hold on, it won't advance. There we go. Tulip. I cooked the fish in the frying what? Y'all don't write on it. Let's just answer it. So you unmute yourself. I cooked the fish in the frying what? And I caught the fish in the deep blue what?
Pan
Sea.
ocean. Pan and
So
ocean.
You caught the fish in the deep blue sea. I heard somebody say sea. What do you fry it? You cook the fish in the frying
Pan.
pansy. Good job. All right, next one. It is a beautiful blank. The sun is shining and you can see, oops, you can blank the pretty white clouds in the sky. It's a beautiful
Sunrise.
sunrise, okay?
Day.
And you
It's a
can
beautiful, somebody else said it. It's a beautiful, you got it right,
Day.
day. The sun is shining and you can blank the pretty white clouds in the sky.
thank.
Day.
And you
What
can
was that?
thank. Thank.
Daisy, you can see the pretty white clouds in the sky. May I have some blank on my bread to go with my blank of tea?
Can I butter
Uh-huh.
cup?
Buttercup. Good job. Very good. All right. So when you are gardening, when you're out taking care of plants, whether it's in your garden, it's flowers or fruits or vegetables, you always want to be a safe gardener. So if you do these, I want you to put a check next to it. I carry, or there should be under the annotate, you should see like a star or symbols or a check mark. You should be able to just put a check mark next to these. I carry hand tools with the sharp edges pointed down. I walk.
Excuse me?
Yes.
I don't see that.
You don't see annotate?
Well, I see annotate, but I don't see the check mark.
Okay, so it should be something called stamp. Do you see when you click on annotate?
Where is
No, I don't see that.
Where is Annotate anyway?
Kevin, that's where we were talking about. It should be up at the top or where it says more options.
It only says option.
There's
Okay,
one
click
other
on
thing.
options.
There's also a weird pencil circle
Okay.
thing that you can see.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's Annotate.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go over these. Yep, annotate is located right there. I walk, I don't run with tools. I leave rakes, hoes, hand cultivators, and shovels pointed down if I set them aside when I'm working in the garden, because you don't want anybody to walk up on it and have it clunk them in the head because they stepped on the hoe. I shovel the tool in the ground when I'm not working with them so the handles are sticking up. And I carry the tools in my hand rather than up on my shoulder. I put away all of my tools when I'm finished for the day. I use the right tools for the right job. And I use tools that fit my size. So you don't want something that's too big for you to use. And when you have wires or stakes, you always want to either tie a bright colored ribbon or some type of tape so that you can always make them very visible. And if you have stakes, you want to put those in where somebody is not going to fall. You always want to wear shoes that cover your toes when you're working in the garden so that you don't accidentally hit your foot. You want to have your toes protected. And if you are working in your garden, you want to have some sturdy shoes, long pants, and goggles. If you are using any type of tool that could be potentially dangerous, and you want to make sure that you have an adult with you supervising you. You wear gloves. I don't always wear my gloves, but if I'm working for a long time, I do, because I want to make sure I don't have any blisters or any kind of cuts. And when you're outside, you always want to make sure you have insect repellent and sunscreen on so that you are protected from the sun. So whether that be long sleeves or a big hat, your sunshades. And you always want to remember to drink lots of water and take breaks when it's hot outside, because you can overheat really quickly in the hot sun. And when you are finished in your garden, always be sure to wash your hands and all the vegetables and fruits that you get from your garden, even if you had gloves on. So you always want to make sure that you're always washing your fruits and vegetables and your hands when you get done in your garden. So it looks like all of you all did a good job with that. Oops. So I'm trying to advance to the next slide and it won't go. There we go. So when you're planting a garden, you have the option to plant from plants to actually purchase something that has already been started, or you can choose to plant from seeds. And sometimes you have to just look at your time and whether you have whether it makes more sense to actually use seeds, which is generally the less expensive way to go, or to go ahead and buy the plants that have already been started by someone else. And part of that could be the time of year. And so thinking about the month and how long it takes for a plant to be able to produce the fruit or vegetable that you want to be able to eat. When you look at the back of a seed packet, it's going to tell you lots of information. It will tell you when is the most optimal time to be able to plant, how to plant the seed, where it would be how deep, how far apart your plant should be as well. And if you do plant more seeds, you can thin them out after they start to germinate. So that, why do you think you might need to thin out your plants?
Because if you don't thin them out, they might not get covered up with soil and eaten by birds or something.
Okay. Yes. Part of that is right. When you, if you have lots of plants that are close together and they have germinated, what will happen is they will compete for the resources, which means all those nutrients, they're going to be competing for them. And so you don't want the plants too close together, because then you might have two very tiny little plants, rather than if you were to pick one out, you might have then one big plant that'll grow more fruit and more vegetables and such. So you don't want the plants to be too close to each other. So thinning them out after they germinate, so they have the appropriate space to be able to grow. And you have to think about, where do you want to plant your vegetables? Does it need a trellis? Can anybody tell me what a trellis is? A trellis is a feature to be able to give a plant something to grow on. A lot of times you see trellises with tomato plants. It gives them additional support to be able to grow up and attach itself. And so that it gives the plant some opportunities to be able to spread out vertically and to be able to grow and give it support. Like green beans and things of that sort oftentimes need trellises. And where does your plant need, how much sun does your plant need? Does it need full sun? Does it need partial shade? And there's different plants that grow at different times of the year. So we have fall producing plants. So when is it ripe and how do you harvest it? All of that information is told on your seed packets as well. So if you choose to go to plant with seeds, there are lots of ways to be able to start your seeds. You can use, you can recycle items like if your parents use coffee, like with your K-cups, which is the Keurig machine cups, those are a great size for starting seeds, or solo cups, or those bathroom cups. You can make your own pots with newspaper. You can use old egg cartons or toilet paper rolls, or even use an eggshell itself. Plastic bottles, yogurt containers, soda pop bottles, planting it directly into the soil, or using, these are again, paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls are great seed starters. And so planting those seeds, getting them started, and then being able to move those into your garden. So the thinning and transplanting is in removing the extra seeds so they have adequate space to fully develop. And how much you thin depends on what type of vegetable and what type of variety. And so when you transplant anything that from those seeds that you may have started, you want to make sure you always water the plant first before you take it out of its original container. And you want to dig a hole that's bigger than slightly larger than the container that you just took the plant out of. You want to remove the entire plant and then loosen the root system, because it may be tied up in a ball, So you want to loosen those roots so they have an opportunity to be able to spread out in that hole that you dug that was bigger. So you set the roots down in the hole, fill the space up with the rest of them, and like gently pat down the dirt. You don't want to compact it because you want it to be able to have the opportunity to move. And then after you transplant, your plant might be under some stress. So you want to be sure to water it, and try not to get the water on the leaves because you don't want it to burn the plant, but water it and keep an eye on it until it gets well established into the ground. You don't want to overwater it though, because you don't want to wash your you don't want your plant to be able to drown, but you want to make sure it's water. And you think of your success. And so a lot of times this is a story is that success is not always what you see. And so if you plant something and you watch it grow, sometimes you can get surprised. And so this is a cute picture I found that shows two rabbits, and one's like all proud because it sees how big its carrot has grown. And the other one is like, well, mine doesn't look very big, but little do they know how huge it is underneath. So it's not always what you see. So I'm going to summarize this. So I want you to know, like, you all tell me and unmute, what do plants need? Remember what we talked about. What things do plants need?
Sunlight, water.
Sunlight, water. Needs. What does it do with the stomata?
Photosynthesis.
Yeah, photosynthesis. So it needs nutrients, sugar. It needs, yeah, it's chlorophyll.
It needs fertilizer.
Fertilizer, so it needs its nutrients. Yep. And it needs one other thing.
Air.
Air, that's right. All right.
Water.
What part of the plants do you eat?
The fruit part.
The fruit?
The stem and the root.
The roots, the stem.
Possibly the leaves. So basically almost every part of the plant.
That's right, almost every part. The flower, the seeds, the roots, the stem, the leaves. Yep, we eat all parts of the plant. And what can you use to start your seeds? Remember that picture I just showed? You can make your own pot. You can make, remember this picture?
You can make it so that it's spread out and more equivalent with where it is.
Yeah, you can, yeah. So you can start the seeds in lots of different things. You can make your own pot with newspaper. You can use plastic bottle. You can use an old egg carton. You can use toilet paper roll. Lots of things to, you can use a little plastic cup or a paper cup. And then why do you thin or transplant plants? What we just talked about, why do we thin out our plants? Yes, Benjamin.
Because if we don't thin them, then they might get dried out or eaten or anything like that.
That's right. So thinning them out helps them, give them a better chance of surviving. So it has adequate space to grow and to become fully developed. So you have to, the seed packets will tell you how far apart your plants should be. And if they're too close, you can move them so that they're further away so they can fully grow and get all the things that they might need. Okay, so we're actually done with our workshop, but I have something else, an activity to do. If you want, you can get a pencil and a piece of paper, and we're going to do a drawing. If you like to draw, we have a drawing activity. So you can jump off if you'd like, or you can stay on. And we're going to do a step-by-step process of drawing. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, we're going to draw a carrot. I've got a couple of things. So we're going to break it down. And so if everybody has like a piece of paper and a pencil, and we're going to show you how to draw some of these vegetables. So the first one is a carrot. So what I'd like everybody to do, and why we draw with a pencil, is because we sometimes then will erase some of our lines that we had previously drawn. So if you draw a triangle like this going down, and then around the triangle, you're going to just kind of give it some bumps. So it just kind of gives it the shape. And then you can go back and erase your triangle. So you may want to not draw it really super dark. Use a light pencil, a light pressure on your pencil. And then if you color it afterwards, it will actually, you won't see your pencil marks. And you're going to draw, like, you know how carrots sometimes have those little divots and such where it grows. And then carrots, when they grow out of the ground, the stems, they have the leaves and the fronds. And so you're going to make your leaves on your All right, does anyone want to show me your carrot? I don't have any cameras. I think, Kevin, you're the only one on still, are you? You're the only one still on. Did you draw the carrot, Kevin? Kevin, can you hear me? Oh, are you frozen? Kevin, can you hear me? Did you draw your carrot?